The main reason I wanted to visit Morocco was because of Chef Shaun, but Chef Shaun doesn't have an airport, so I had to go through Tangier. Before this trip, I heard a lot of stories about scammers in Morocco, and I even spoke to a colleague who said he would never visit Morocco again because the locals were too pushy when selling things. So I guess I had this idea that it's going to be really touristy and locals would be trying to sell me things.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. مرحبا بكم فيديو جديد، نتمنى تكونوا بخير وعلى خير ان شاء الله. في الفيديو الاخر غنشاهدوا في سائحة أجنبية بغات تزور المغرب الاخوان، حيت سمعت على المغرب بزاف ديال الهضره وشافت بزاف ديال المقاطع وكلشي كيهضر على المغرب السياحه وداكشي، بغات تزور. ولكن الاخوان حضروها الاصدقاء ديالها من المحتالين في المغرب، وقالوا لا ما تمشيش، عندهم كينصبوا بزاف داكشي كامل اخوان. واخا هي سمعت هاد الهضره كامل من اصدقاء كلهم حضروها ما تجيش المغرب وداكشي، الا هي مشات اخوان جات المغرب، جات ليه وداكشي وجات عندنا اخوان. شنو نقول لكم، صدمات بزاف ما غنحرقش عليكم الاخوان، ولكن نشاهدوا الفيديو مجموعين. راه تصدمات بزاف داكشي اللي شافتو داكشي اللي لقات في المغرب، راه بحالها كتقول لهم منيتكم. المهم يا اخوان نشاهدوا الفيديو كامل، ما تنسوش تعملوا واحد لايك، اشتركوا في القناه، تشوفوا مع الاصدقاء ديالكم. ننصحكم يا اخوان تستمتعوا بهذا الفيديو بزاف. شاهدوا مجموعين ونتلاقاو في الاخر الفيديو.
But Chef Shaun doesn't have an airport, so I had to go through Tangier. When I was planning the trip, I ended up planning just to visit Chef Shaun in Fez. I didn't think much of Tangier, but as soon as I landed in Tangier, the level of hospitality I received, starting with the border control officer, the taxi driver, even random people on the streets. I wasn't expecting people to be that welcoming and to be genuinely happy to help. And you know what they say, people can make or break the place. Not only were the people friendly, but Tangier is also a very beautiful city. So I decided to give it 2 days. And my only regret is that I wish I stayed longer. As we were landing, I was a bit worried about the weather. I thought it was going to rain, and I was coming from Brussels that had been raining for 2 days in a row. And I just wanted to see some sun at this point, but once we landed, the sky cleared up. Before this trip, I heard a lot of stories about scammers in Morocco. And I even spoke to a colleague who said he would never visit Morocco again because the locals were too pushy when selling things. So I guess I had this idea that it's going to be really touristy and locals would be trying to sell me things. But this was far from the truth. At least the cities I visited were not like that. Just like most cities in Morocco, Tangier has the old town or the Medina and the newer side of town. I will start with the newer side of town, then the old town. When I arrived in the newer side of town, I honestly thought, did I even leave Europe? It looks like it can't be any town in Europe. The only thing that reminded me that this was Morocco were the road signs. They are in Arabic. But apart from that, it looks like Europe, which makes sense since Morocco is very close to Europe and Tangier in particular is very close to Spain. On a ferry from Tangier to the municipality of Tarifa in Spain, the journey is only 1 hour. As I stayed longer in the city, I started to notice other differences, like I didn't see any graffiti. Maybe they have it, but in this area I was in, I didn't see any. I tend to notice a lot of graffiti in big cities in Europe. Another thing I noticed, I didn't see beggars, as in beggars sitting and asking for money. We did get approached though by someone who was asking us to buy him food. He appeared to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. He asked us to buy him bread in a corner shop or convenience shop. And he saw an opportunity and started taking a lot of things to the point where the shopkeeper asked him to stop. Then the shopkeeper told us that most likely the guy was going to resell the items and buy drugs. So a few things would have been enough. But apart from that, nobody else asked us for anything. Also, this is so underrated. I feel like we don't talk about this enough. I always appreciate how most African cities always have well-maintained plants or grass. I also noticed the same with cities in Malawi, Ethiopia, and Namibia. The traffic was quite heavy when we were going into the city, so I expected to see a lot more people out, but there weren't that many people out. This was on a Monday afternoon, so maybe people were at work. This area was really quiet. I think this is one of the royal residences. I saw some guards outside, or could be soldiers. If anyone from Tangier is watching, please let me know if this is one of the royal residences. In this neighborhood, there are really nice restaurants or cafes like Cafe Hafa. Thank you. Cafe Hafa has a lot of items on the menu, but we wanted something light because we already had breakfast at this point. I don't remember the name of the order, but it came with a lot of bread and the priceless view, of course. Almost every cafe or restaurant in Morocco serves mint tea. After Cafe Hafa, we went out to explore a bit more. And apparently from here, you should be able to see Gibraltar. I couldn't see anything though. These rock-cut chambers are Phoenician tombs that date back to the 5th and 4th centuries BCE. Basically before Jesus was born. They're believed to be burial sites of Phoenician traders and settlers who had a strong presence in the Mediterranean coast, including North Africa. This site shows that they were here and influenced the history and culture of this region. These tombs are linked to the Phoenician colony of Tangier, which eventually became the city of Tangier. I was surprised the tombs were that accessible. To have that historical or archaeological value in other countries, they probably would have dug up the whole rock and placed it in a museum, or would have had some kind of protective glass or something. As we were exploring, we came across another restaurant I couldn't pass up on. I wasn't even hungry, but I just had to try it because I love seafood. I loved everything about this restaurant, starting with the decor. The staff were really nice, and the prices were not that bad either. Since both me and my partner weren't that hungry, we just ordered one seafood platter and some tea. But they always serve everything with bread, which was delicious, and the seafood was also really good. They also served this dessert. I forgot the name of it, but it was really good. The service was also really quick, probably because there weren't that many customers, but it was quick. I came across this plant shop. I wanted to see what was inside, so I went in. This is how I imagine my dream garden to look like. There's something about plants that makes me feel so happy. It gets boring seeing concrete jungles all the time with cities. I think a bit of green makes them look more interesting. This was like a trip to a botanical garden. This is also why I love exploring cities without fully planning sometimes. You come across things like this. There's so much variety of plants in this shop. I wonder if some of these are only for the Mediterranean climate, since this region does have a Mediterranean climate. This was a residential area. It looks like most of the housing in Tangier are apartments. Tangier is like a bridge between Africa and Europe. I will try to give a simplified timeline of its history. In early history, around 8th century BCE, I've already spoken about the Phoenicians with the tombs earlier. Basically, they colonized Tangier and established it as a trading post. So it became part of the Carthaginian Empire, and it was an important link between Africa and Europe. After the fall of Carthage, Tangier became part of the Roman Empire. This was around 1st century BCE to 5th century CE. In 8th century CE, it became an important city in the Islamic world after the Arab-Muslim conquest, and it was integrated into successive Moroccan dynasties. Around 15th to 17th centuries, Tangier was captured by Portugal. It was later ceded to England as dowry for Catherine of Braganza when she married King Charles II in 1661. Tangier was then reclaimed by Morocco in 1684. During 18th till 19th centuries, it became a trade center attracting European merchants. Its location made it a melting pot of cultures. From 1923 till 1956, Tangier was designated as an international zone, and in 1956, it was reintegrated into Morocco. So 1923 till 1956, when Tangier was an international zone, the rest of Morocco was colonized by France and Spain. France controlled the majority of Morocco, and Spain controlled some areas in the northern and southern region of the country. And Tangier was governed by France, Spain, and Britain. In 1956, once Morocco gained its independence, the international Spanish and French zones were all unified. So Tangier's culture reflects its history. It blends traditional Moroccan customs with European and Mediterranean customs. The primary language is Arabic, but a lot of people also speak Spanish, French, and Berber. The ethnicities are predominantly Moroccan, Berber, and Andalusian. I don't know if I can classify Arab as an ethnicity. I believe Arab is more of a culture, so anyone who is Arab cultured can be classified as Arab despite the ethnicity. But correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Religion-wise, the majority is Muslim. Islam is the state religion in Morocco, so about 99% of Moroccans are Muslim. Moroccans also dress very modest. This is because of their religious values. If you haven't watched my other Moroccan videos, I do recommend that if you visit, you dress modest. The locals won't bother you if you dress however you want to. It's just to show respect to them and their culture. You can actually do horse riding in the city center. Now, about the hotels. I stayed in 2 hotels. One was near the airport and the other one was in the old town. This hotel was the one near the airport. This was about £65 on booking.com, including breakfast for 2 people. It's a bit of a drive to the city center, but the hotel itself is very good. I recommend it because it's not that hard to get a taxi to the center. The staff can help you get a taxi to the center as well, so just ask and they'll help you with it. The room had pretty much everything I needed. They also have this little balcony. If I can see some plants, it's always a plus for me. The hotel has a restaurant, so you can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the hotel. You can also sit outside if you wish. And they also have these cats. They're stray cats, but in Morocco, this is normal. There's so many of them, and the community just looks after them, even in the hotels. I love Moroccan mint tea. However, something really weird happened. Now, I always like couscous when I have it in Moroccan restaurants in Europe. But every couscous dish I tried in Tangier, I didn't like it. I liked the tangines, dessert, and everything else, just not the couscous. I tried the couscous in multiple restaurants, and I didn't like any of them. I think it's just a matter of taste. Moroccan food mixes a lot of contrasting ingredients, so for me, the combos can either be a hit or a miss. The breakfast in the hotel was amazing. It had really good options. It had the Moroccan breads, other Moroccan breakfast food, and other international breakfast foods as well. I stayed at this hotel for only a night, so I had one chance to have the breakfast. I had to leave early for Chef Shaun, so I only had about 5 minutes. So with this amazing selection, I only ate a piece of Moroccan bread. Because as soon as I started eating, the taxi driver arrived. The second hotel was after I came back from Chef Shaun in Fez. It has this shared terrace which shows you a good view of the old town. This hotel is very different from the other one in a sense that it's in a residential area and is located in the old town. This hotel is called Dar Sharif. It was also £65 on booking.com including breakfast. I missed the breakfast, I overslept. Breakfast here is served till 10:30 a.m. The biggest pro for this hotel is that it's right at the center, so you don't need a taxi to explore the town center. You also get to experience how life is like in the Medina. I'm a very light sleeper, so I couldn't sleep at all here because the stray cats I was talking about earlier could not stop making any noise. At the same time, it was a great chance to interact with the locals. The Medina doesn't have roads wide enough for cars to pass through, so you'd have to get dropped off on another street and walk up to the hotel. As I was walking in the Medina, some kid about 16 to 17 years old was like, "Welcome to my city. I hope you guys like it." And so on and so forth. If you are lost, let me know. And a few other people would also talk. I remember another guy was trying to prove to his friends that he can't speak English, so he started talking to us. We went to this restaurant called Saveur de Poisson. My French pronunciations are so bad, but the restaurant doesn't have a menu. It just serves seafood. So if you're a picky eater, don't bother because the chef is only cooking what he wants to that day. It was recommended by a lot of the locals, and I have to say, personally, it was the best restaurant I went to in Tangier. But then for me, it's very hard to go wrong with seafood. I'm still craving for some of the dishes I had here, so I highly recommend if you visit Tangier. You get a few courses for a set price. I think this was 200 dirhams per person. I don't remember the exact price, but it was around 200 to 250 per person. Even the bread was fresh, and the food kept coming in. We actually had to tell the waiter to stop giving us food because it was too much. More and more just kept coming in. Went to explore the Medina a bit more, and you can find pretty much anything here except for cars. Here's another restaurant I went to. It's located on the Grand Circle Square. I ordered couscous. I don't want to say the name of the restaurant because the food was really bland.
واش عجبتني ما قطعتش الأذان.
Remember when I said Islam is the state religion in Morocco? Well, you get to hear prayer calls during Muslim prayer times in the streets of Tangier. This is the Grand Soccer Square. It's like the gateway between the Medina and the more modern neighborhoods in Tangier. Even at night, the stray dogs and cats are everywhere.
المش داخل الكاش فلوس ويجبد فلوس.
The Medina is like a maze of alleyways and stairs. It has a mixture of architecture, some of it Moorish, Andalusian, and European. There's not a single period which the Medina was founded, but you can see that each historical period influenced the architecture or the Medina to some extent. Another restaurant I recommend in the Medina is Le Bistro du Petit Salt, Andalusian and European. There's not a single period.
ذكرت هنا المدينة، طلعت في الترجمة المدينة المنورة بلونجلي. ملي كتقول مدينة اوتوماتيكمون كترجم مدينة المنورة. صلحت جميع الجملات اللي فيهم المدينة، هذه فلتت لي ما شفتهاش، اسمحوا لي.
Period which the Medina was founded, but you can see that each historical period influenced the architecture or the Medina to.
هذه ترجمة المدينة المنورة. كان راجع الترجمة كنصلح فيها الأخطاء. هذه فلتت بالأونجلي اوتوماتيكمون ولا بأي لغة كيقول شي واحد المدينة، الترجمة كترجمها المدينة المنورة.
Some extent. Another restaurant I recommend in the Medina is Le Bistro du Petit Soccer. It has this lovely terrace, Moorish, Andalusian, and European. There's not a single period which the Medina was founded, but you can see that each historical period influenced the architecture or the Medina to some extent. Another restaurant I recommend in the Medina is Le Bistro du Petit Soccer. It has this lovely terrace and the food is really good.
دائما كنراجع الترجمه كنلقى فيها بزاف ديال الاخطاء كنصلحهم، ولكن هذيك لا غالب. الترجمه الاوتوماتيكيه كتهبط لك واحد 70 60% صحيحه و30% ولا 40% بعض المرات كنصلحها انا بيدي. الكلمات اللي غالطين كنصلحها.
There are other good restaurants as well in the Medina. You can find Moroccan food, European food, so it's actually quite diverse. You won't be restricted to just one type of cuisine. The only thing I would say though is that since this is a Muslim country, most of the food in the restaurants is halal. And you might not find pork or alcohol, so if you're used to bacon for breakfast, you might need to have other options. You can find beer, but I think this also depends on the restaurant. By the way, these buildings are just outside the Medina where cars cannot really enter because the roads are narrow. I don't know if this part is still considered the Medina, but if anybody knows, please let me know in the comments down below. This whole area though just looks like Paris or Spain to me. Just outside the Medina as well, there's this cafe. It's one of the oldest cafes in Tangier. We ordered croque monsieur, but since this is a halal cafe, the croque monsieur does not have pork in it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.
أصدقائي
The main reason I wanted to visit Morocco.
أصدقائي كان هذا هو الفيديو ديالنا. كنتمنى تكونوا استمتعتوا به وعجبكم. فانا الفيديوهات هادو كنجيبهم كيكون فيهم افاده. هادشي اللي كيكون في الفيديو بصراحه زوين بزاف وعبره. داك الناس النوع شي يقول لك فلان ما ديرش هادي ما ديرش هادي لا ما تسمعش الباب، سير دير حكم شوف جرب هاد حكم. ما تسمعش الهضره ديال بنادم، ما تسمعش الاراء ديال بنادم، ما تشوفش تجارب بنادم، ما تشوفش غير اللي كيبغي يقول شي هضره شي يقولها. لا سير شوف جرب حكم قلب دير هاد حكم براسك. المهم يا خويا نشوفكم في فيديو مسجل. واحد لايك، سبسكرايب، نلقاو ان شاء الله.
السلام.